Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Oracle AI World. Welcome to our session for IBM, Proven Framework to Build Agile Supply Chains. My name is Luis Sanchez. I am a partner with IBM's consulting business, and I also lead IBM's Oracle supply chain practice. So been in this space for about 20 years in a variety of roles, both on the industry and consulting side. Very passionate about supply chain, very excited to talk to you today about not just supply chain, but also supply chain embedded with AI, right? And what we're doing at IBM on the Oracle side to make sure that we get the most value out of both your investment in Oracle, but also in these new advances that you're seeing across the board for AI. So, just some numbers for you in terms of, what we're seeing with regards to trends. So IBM has, we have our Institute of Business Value that does polls with supply chain executives on a variety of topics. And one of the studies that they did recently was about, what are the key paradigms for supply chain agility, right? Single source of truth. Supply chains, I mean, if you're in any sort of supply chain role, you realize that sometimes we depend upon multiple systems to be able to, get the truth, if you will, about what's happening to our supply chain. Business disruption, right? Supply chains, as we evolved into technology, evolved into more complex, multi-country, multi-geography supply chains, become more complex and they're more prone to disruption, right? One of the nodes in our supply chain all of a sudden does not work, and it just causes, chaos, across the board. Somebody might remember a little thing called COVID we had a while back, and all of the chaos that we saw with supply chain and all the impact it had to the economy, across the board as well. So minimizing that disruption in the supply chain is extremely important. And then ultimately, be able to have compliance, be able to be auditable, from a supply chain perspective, minimize business disruption, right? Again, from a business perspective, supply chain underpins the entire business, right? And our financial and HR folks, would also say that, they have, skin in the game as well, right? But ultimately, if you sell products and or services, your supply chain is really what makes and breaks your business and makes it profitable. Now, in terms of what is Gen AI, how is it impacting supply chains in general, right? Some of the big areas that you see here: supply chain planning, production, delivery, logistics, procurement, just some big areas of supply chain that are getting significantly impacted. There's some paradigms that also need to be included in our thought process as we think about agility in the supply chain, right? Being able to analyze, be able to react to ever-changing demand, be able to identify risks before they happen, right? Insights. And that's one of the reasons and one of the things that AI brings to the table is our ability to see across the supply chain, the ability to see insights, the ability for AI to work for us in making our supply chain that much more efficient and reactive to change. So in terms of the IBM point of view on AI supply chain, and this is a busy slide, so I'm not going to go into all the details here, right? But as you probably have heard at the show today, Oracle is constantly coming out with AI agents, either pre-built agents, and now they've announced the Oracle AI Agent Studio, which you may have heard about, in the show, right? So we have within the SaaS layer and OCI AI offerings, within the different pillars, one of them being supply chain, we have pre-built agents, agents that can help me with my procurement, my supply chain planning, my inventory management, right? These are built by Oracle, certified by Oracle, included in the product. IBM, Watson, you may have heard of Watson, in the past, remember that old Jeopardy episode where Watson played an actual human contestant, right? That's evolved a little bit since then, right? I mean, it's been, years since that happened, and we have, our Watson AI, Watson X Orchestrate platform that does a lot of these AI functions as well. And we've also built Watson on top of Oracle for a lot of our customers as well, right? So now you have Oracle AI, you have our IBM AI, and you have the fusion, no pun intended, right, on what we're doing on the IBM side along with the AI Agent Studio that you'll hear a lot about. And really what the studio does is it gives you a starting point for AI. I think a lot of organizations, especially as a supply chain executive, struggle with the notion of there's a broader enterprise supply chain, AI strategy that we have to think about. And then at our, supply chain level, how do we get started, right? I mean, do we do it all at the same time? Do we do it in sections? These AI Agent Studio templates that you'll hear more about during the show give you a starting point, and that's really the important part of this revolution is you have to get started. You cannot be left behind because it is changing everything that we do in supply chain profoundly. Now, in terms of the framework, right, which is one of the things that we're going to talk about today, right, is a couple of things that we're doing on the IBM side. And some of you may have heard IBM acquired Axel Alpha, who is a premier Oracle supply chain partner. So every single capability you can think of in terms of supply chain, we have a ton of success stories, a ton of clients. And now with the power of broader IBM, technology, software, consulting, we are really a powerhouse in Oracle supply chain, right? What's interesting about this diagram that I'm showing you here is that we can help you and we can meet you in any part of the journey that you're in. I mean, some organizations have already started their AI journey, some are still evaluating options, platforms. What do I use? How am I going to use it? How much do I want to pay for it, right? Who is going to use it? In what capacity are we going to use it? And ultimately, even the data. Is my data going to be safe in this new AI world that we have? So all these things we can help you with on the IBM side. And we have a framework for all these different steps that you see here, right? Anywhere from laying out the strategy, to implementing the strategy, to helping you manage enablement for AI across different technologies, not just Oracle, and ultimately being able to operate the AI, right? Constantly evolving, constantly adding new features, functions, becoming more intelligent, right? And having the right partner to shepherd you through this journey is a very important aspect of what we're doing. I like to say that at IBM, we drink our own tea, right? In that, we sell you services and we sell you software and infrastructure that we internally at IBM use. So we wouldn't have much of a leg to stand on unless that underpin a lot of the recommendations that we put forth. So in that respect, I want to introduce you to our next speaker, who's going to tell us a little bit more about what we call the IBM Client Zero Value story, right? Things that we've been doing at IBM with AI and some of the value that we've realized using AI inside of IBM. So without further ado, Pushpinder Singh, our Global Practice Leader for Supply Chain Transformation and Offerings.
Thank you, Luis, and hello, everyone. Thanks, Q, for joining us for this session. Again, I know there are a lot of parallel sessions going on, and you prioritizing this session is very important for us. My role at IBM is I lead supply chain transformation global practice for IBM. And as a part of my role, right, I work with a lot of clients like you and help them reimagine their supply chain in terms of their operations, not just to make them more efficient, but also kind of make them more agile, intelligent, as well as resilient. So that's my focus. For me, agility is not just making faster decisions. It's also about how you can sense, decide, and act faster than the disruption which is kind of coming and impacting you. So that's what I do. We all wear multiple hats. As a part of one of my hat, I work very closely with our own supply chain. I advise them on their transformation journey. And it's there where I work with a lot of professionals like you, as well as researchers and people who are designing technology, including AI and Watson, for supply chain use. So I work with them, and that's where I kind of apply a lot of innovations. And same innovations, we use it for our own business, as well as we bring it out for our customers. So with that, I will kind of get into details of IBM supply chain and what's our scale, right? Overall, like we serve around 170 plus countries, and we do 10 million plus shipments. We have 350K plus SKUs, which we move around through this global network. We also deal with close to 200 plus direct part suppliers. So these are not our overall suppliers. Our overall suppliers is much bigger, but this is what we deal with. And through this network, like you are familiar with IBM Consulting, maybe software, we do have a lot of other products which we move through this supply chain, and these are primarily the power and the storage systems. We have Z servers, as well as we have quantum infrastructure related activities. So all that moves through this supply chain. It's very complex, it's very configurable. But like any large organization, we do have a lot of complexities, right? To make our supply chain run, we have over 20 systems where transactions are happening, and we need all that information to make our decisions faster and more efficient, right? Now, this is the scale like we operate on. I will continue with why kind of we moved into more transformation journey, right? Our CEO a couple of years back decided that, put a strong ambition that we want to become a most productive company in the world. And because of this ambition, like it started series of transformation initiative within IBM across all functions, including supply chains, right? And the mantra was, again, look at all our processes, how they're happening, eliminate them, simplify them, automate them, and finally orchestrate them. So that's the mantra everyone marched on from last 2+ years within IBM. And when we say, like, the idea was that we are starting to relook everything in the definition of new. It was not like we are just automating something or we are just lifting and shifting a process, right? A lot of activities in terms of simplification, and everywhere we started using advanced technologies, including AI. At that time when we started this, it was primarily traditional AI, and we were just getting in the beginnings of Gen AI, which Luis mentioned before, right? Again, results speaks for themselves. Overall, as an organization, we have saved around $3.5 billion in productivity and savings. These are the numbers which we realized in last 2 years, and now this goal is revised, and we are looking for $4.5 billion reduction in our productivity and savings. Now, what has happened in this, right? So as I mentioned, AI has a big role to play. When we started these activities in 22-23, the primary focus was how do we identify things to eliminate, simplify, and automate. So that was our primary focus. When we moved into 2024, we saw Gen AI is kind of getting more popular. We've started using Gen AI and started reimagining our business flows, like how we can infuse AI, not just use it for insights, but how to make it part of our day-to-day operations. So that was the focus area we started. So we call it as, instead of plus AI, we call it as AI plus, so that AI is part of everything from the beginning, right? And then we moved into 2025. Again, the focus shifted. We saw significant gains with agentic AI, and now we are reimagining some of our workflows where agentic AI can help, and that's the big initiatives going on. And all this is happening us kind of unlock a lot of value. So this is how we are using AI in our supply chain to make our supply chain more agile. Okay. Again, we have achieved different outcomes. So these are some of the top 5 outcomes which we have achieved. The first and the foremost is by taking these initiatives, like we moved a lot of information from disparate systems into one place, right? And that is the place where we started generating all the insights. So for us, all our supply chain professionals, like 1,500 plus who are taking day-to-day decisions, they are getting into a cockpit where they are asking simple questions and information is presented so that they can take their decision faster. Like they don't have to click on multiple dashboards to understand the issue or take an action around that. And that's what we call democratization of data. Everyone has access to the same data, whether it's a planner who is making a decision, a person who is taking an operational decision, or an executive taking a decision. So all have access to the same data. We kind of synthesize that as a part of one source of truth, which means that if a report generated from that cockpit is not having the right data, which means that it's a backlog item, it needs to be corrected. So there is no second place where they can go and get that information on. We spent significant amount of time in automating the manual task, and we just call it automation of toil, so that we can free up our planners' time to do more scenarios, to take more powerful decisions, right? And again, this all helped us move more from reactive to proactive. Just to give you a glimpse of it, like in this platform, we call it as Orchestrate Advisor 360. We can go all the way from our multi-tier supply chain from suppliers to the customers whom we are serving. So we have full visibility in real time, which we are getting in from all the 20 systems. Right? So that's the type of experience we have created. And again, it has led to improve our productivity in the forms of our supply chain as well as manufacturing. Right? And these are the ways which has changed how we operate and work. Now, in terms of some numbers, we all are interested in numbers. So overall, collectively, the goal was 3.5 billion. Supply chain also contributed. And these numbers are more from the operation side of it. There's a bigger number which is kind of attached to procurement transformation, which is over $2 billion. But from supply chain operations itself, like in last 2+ years, we have unlocked around $316 million as savings. We have improved our cash flow. The biggest benefit which we have seen is that our decision velocity has increased drastically, right? There is no, I'll say, there used to be multiple weeks to take a decision. Now all that can happen in minutes and seconds, and that's the power which everyone is liking. Another benefit which we have seen is that workforce was a key challenge, because of the complexity, we don't have enough time to train everyone on the new systems. So with the simplicity of one interface to make all the decisions, it is also helping us attract new talents, which was never the goal when we started this journey, right? And overall, we have achieved around 16% reduction, productivity improvements around different areas of supply chain. So this is what we have done with our own supply chain. Now I'll invite our guest speaker, Dave Sankarnarayan, to share his journey on agile supply chains.
Awesome.
I can't tell if the microphone is on or not.
Yeah. Welcome, Dave. So just to give, I won't steal Dave's thunder here, but DirecTV is going through a huge supply chain transformation right now. And IBM is helping them along the way with the transformation, not just in terms of Oracle supply chain in and of itself, but also, their AI side of it. So Dave, I'll let you talk a little bit about that. Yeah.
So, like I said, my name is Dave Sankaranarayanan. The last name is pretty hard to pronounce. And I'm sure Louis got out of that by giving it to Pushpinder so that he could introduce me. I'm with DirecTV. I lead the quality engineering as well as corporate systems over there. If you followed DirecTV over the last 10 years, we've gone through quite a journey. So in is it good? Okay. So in 2014, AT&T acquired DirecTV. So we were part of the AT&T group of companies. In 2021, we were split out as our own entity, but we were still owned by AT&T. And then 2 months ago, we separated from AT&T completely. So what that means for our supply chain journey is DirecTV had its own supply chain processes and systems. And back in 2014, we moved all of that to the AT&T processes and systems. And since 21, we have been in the process of separating from AT&T and getting on our own platform. So the good thing for us is we have the ability to implement something good right out of the gate with all of the AI capabilities and everything, which probably a lot of organizations don't have. So we just started on this journey earlier this year. We've just gone through the requirements phase in the first 6 months. We just started the development process. we have a very tight timeline. We have to be live by next July. So it's a lot of effort. And the IBM team has been doing a good job helping us get there. Yeah. So that's just my journey as a...
Yeah, awesome, awesome. So, along those lines, we wanted to talk about some questions, some things that are relevant in terms of the AI era in supply chain, right? So, Dave, I'll go to you first since you're in the process of building an agile supply chain. What things have you seen are needed to think, when you think about agility in the supply chain, especially for DirecTV, what things do you think have to be in place to be able to be agile?
Yeah. I think you did a good job. Pushpinder walked through the top 5 outcomes slide. Yeah. My thinking is kind of aligned with a lot of the stuff that was covered there, right? Yeah. So if I don't have a huge, like a long background in supply chain. I'm just coming into this new. Probably that's a good thing because I get to have an outsider view on what needs to happen. So for me, from a supply chain agility standpoint, there are 5 things that we traditionally look at, right? We look at responsiveness, how quickly can we adopt to change? From a how flexible are we? Is it easy to change our systems and processes when there is an adverse event? Third is to look at the speed of delivery. So once we know about a change, how long does it take for us to make that change in our systems? Fourth is around visibility, having access to all of the data that we need. So we have different technologies, and given the history of DirecTV and AT&T, we have different systems for CRM, logistics, supplier data, ERP, all of those are disparate systems. So just to bring them together and have the one single source of truth that Pushpinder was talking about, that by itself is a big challenge. And then the 5th area would be around collaboration with suppliers. How open are we to collaborate with the suppliers, sharing data between them and us, and not having an isolated source of truth, right? So if I think about those 5, traditionally I believe supply chain has been focused on responsiveness and flexibility. But with AI, to me at least, it seems like the speed, visibility, and collaboration is where I think AI can play a big role. So starting off, I think everything starts off with the data. So getting with visibility, the first thing I think we need is being able to have a unified data fabric across all of those different systems that I just talked about. Being able to bring all of that together and have a single source of truth. Then being able to have AI simulations or agents that can actually look at the situation and say, what-if scenarios. If you can run what-if scenarios on a condition before you actually make the change, that's going to go a long way. So that's going to be part of the visibility piece. And then from a responsiveness standpoint, I think if we are able to have agents that actually help us forecast from a demand forecasting perspective. Yep. If they're able to look at what is down the line, then that's going to be key. And then from a collaboration standpoint, being able to have break down the walls between suppliers and us, being able to share the data and being able to process all of that, that's going to be key, right? So if we do all of this, I think at the end of the day, the goal is going to be how do we move from a traditional responsiveness, flexibility kind of model into more of a self-learning predictive ecosystem. So that's the goal for us.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then Pushpinder, in your role, you see a lot of supply chain customers of IBM across the world, across industries, across technologies. Anything else that you would add in terms of what it takes to be agile in this new AI world?
Yeah. So first is I'll definitely agree with Dave, right? Data and the overall orchestration needs to be done. But I feel after doing these programs for more than 20 years, for more than 30+ clients, my experience is that if we have to become agile, we also have to see there's a considerable mind shift from the leadership side as well, because just data and technology will not get us there, right? We have to think about what outcomes we are looking for our supply chains, and we have to change our operating models for that. I've done so many programs, we have done great technology enablements, but in the end, if this operating model is not adjusted right, the benefits are delayed or not realized at all. So that's the topmost thing. So you have to have structural intent, how you want to operate your supply chain. Second point is we have to take decision making at the level where we have information, so decision making at the edge. Right now, we still have these weekly meetings, monthly meetings, where a lot of decisions are made. And to make your supply chain agile, that's not a good recipe. So that's the second point. Of course, data and technology, you need to set it right. We also have to change how we look at our supply chain. So traditionally, we are just looking at it based on cost. We have to move it more towards how we measure our success around faster decision making, how we are creating that impact. So those measures needs to be added into our monitoring in addition to cost and the service.
Love that, love that. And that's a great segue to my next question, which is measurability, right? I mean, we can't know if we're successful unless we measure, right? And a lot of us in our different functions in supply chain, we have metrics that we need to abide by, right? So Dave, can you maybe share with us, from your perspective and your role and some of the things that you're seeing at DirecTV, what metrics are going to be really important, to be agile in this new AI world?
So for us, in our current state, to your point, I don't think we have a good model, at least currently, to look at how it's going to evolve with AI, right? So what I would say is currently what we capture is around supply chain, transportation, and warehousing management, right? So those are the three areas that we look at. In supply chain, we look at the overall, from a planning perspective, if you look at planning, we look at the owned inventory, both from a 3+9 as well as a 6+6 perspective. And then we look at what are the 3-year commitments that are coming up for us. And then another thing that's critical for us is activation. So from a DirecTV perspective, what we really hold is set-top boxes for end customers. So what we really measure is activations every month. How many activations do we do? And our forecast for activation is a big piece of our business. So being able to look at the accuracy of that forecast, that's going to be critical for us. And I think that's an area where AI can help us really, from being able to deploy agents that can look at demand and tell us how it's going to be, right? So that's from an operational, from a planning standpoint. From an operational standpoint, we obviously look at cost. Cost is a big piece of the operations. And then from a warehouse perspective, we look at aging of products, space utilization, things like that. So those are the key ones that we look at right now.
Awesome. Pushpinder, any other metrics that you see across our clients that are becoming maybe more important or more looked at in this AI era?
Yeah. So I'll say definitely the traditional metrics are available, and Dave has covered most of them very well, right? So we look at cost of supply chain, we look at the inventory turns, and then we also look at the OTIF primarily. These are the metrics we have seen. In my views, for agile supply chains, we have to maybe look at 3 more dimensions. One is, what are the metrics for a responsive supply chain? So how fast a demand chain can be aligned with supply organization before we are committing to a plan. We also have to look at it, how fast we can run scenarios, because we all say that because of disruptions, we need to run a lot of scenarios, but look at it like very few organizations have real capabilities to do that. So that's the second one. Also, they need to create a focus area around resiliency, right? So we all can understand and disruption has happened, but how soon you can respond to the disruption should be a metrics, so that right energy can be added to that. I'm working with a large pharma company, and that's an area where they have focused, right? And when we saw their response to disruptions were like 3 to 4 weeks before they can come back with a plan. 2 years we have spent with them. Right now, they say that they can take that decision in less than 30 minutes. So that is the type of transformation agile supply chains can bring. And finally, like, we also have to add metrics. When they have mentioned about agents and AI, we also have to have metrics like whether the decisions which were recommended are being adopted or not. So there is no such measures today, because I know like we generated best plans, best forecasting outputs, but planners.
Could you repeat that point? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
So the metrics around the adaptability of the results, right? The results which are generated by AI or agents, how are we using them? Like how many times we are making manual adjustments on top of that, right? So those are the metrics like which I have not seen a lot of chief supply chain officers focus on, but they need to add it. Then only we can truly say that our supply chains are moving towards agility.
Yep. What I'll add there too is a couple of my hot tech clients, they're looking at it from the perspective of going from reactive to proactive, right? And what some of these agents can do is constantly look at a metric and measure it. So they can constantly look at a process, constantly look at order flow, inventory turns, those things that are important to us in the supply chain world, and react to it, make decisions, and then tell us, I made this decision to impact this specific metric because this is the metric that you set for the organization, right? So it's a huge paradigm change, thinking from, I run a report, I look at the report, I analyze it, and I say whether or not I'm trending in the right direction, versus having an agent behind the scenes do all that for me, and also tell me, I made this decision in service of this specific metric. So as you're thinking about that AI journey that you're going to take in your different organizations, changing that mindset of, training your agents in such a way that they look at metrics, not just do workflows or transactions, is incredibly important for the supply chain side of the house. So along those lines, and talking more about, we've talked about AI. What steps, what do we have to start doing now to be able to take advantage of these things, right? Because the technology is coming. All of these technology vendors, including Oracle, of course, they're embedding AI in pretty much everything, across both their SaaS infrastructure, middle layer, so forth. So from your perspective, Dave, what is DirecTV doing proactively, to adopt these things in the supply chain?
So I think for DirecTV, given where we are in the journey, right, it's a little bit easier for us from the data standpoint, because you did talk about data and technology, right, which are probably the focus areas for me, because I own the information technology team that's responsible for this implementation. So from a data standpoint, I think that's going to be the key for us right out of the gate. Because as we are building these systems, we need to be able to have that unified data platform that we talked about that's going to drive most of the work by these AI engines. Without all of that data, we would not be successful in implementing those, right? Because I have other teams where we've implemented Gen AI solutions, and you usually hit a point where the data that's supporting that agent and helping those models learn is insufficient, right? And at that point, you pretty much actually hit a wall, and the effectiveness of that AI agent is limited. So what we really need to be able to do is first do an analysis of what kind of data is going to be key for us. And if you look at the DirecTV model, we have traditionally been a satellite TV provider, right? So all of our inventory that you see was driven by the satellite set-top boxes. And then we went into streaming. Now we have streaming devices. But now you're getting to bring your own device. So you are able to actually get DirecTV on your phone, so there's no device involved. So the relevance of the inventory levels over a period of time is going to be less and less important to DirecTV, because I think with the business model, our customers will move over to their own devices at some point, right? So with that kind of change in the industry and kind of change in the inventory levels, if we don't have the right data to make decisions, it's going to be extremely hard for us to manage our cost, which is one of the prime reasons, right? So I would say for us, the very first thing that we have to do is build that unified data model that can give us all of that data. And then to what Pushpinder said, from an AI standpoint, sometimes just because we want to experiment, we jump in and implement an AI agent right out of the gate without even thinking about what is the measure of success of that agent, right? So I think Pushpinder covered that earlier. So what we really need to be able to do is, before jumping in and creating these agents, we need to come up with a framework that tells us how do you measure the effectiveness of those agents. And then once we have both of those, I think we'll be well on our way to create some of those platforms.
Absolutely. Pushpinder, from your perspective, what are companies starting to do? What are companies maybe lagging a little bit behind on things that they have to put in place in their process and or strategy to be able to take advantage of AI.
Yeah. No, so I will add to what Dave mentioned. So Dave covered like data part to a great extent, as well as technology part also. But I feel, right, a lot of education needs to happen. When I interact with different personas in any client organization, I see that the information of what agents can do or how Gen AI can be used is very, very surface level. Like they are not thinking it to the importance it needs to be given. That's my experience. Like for IBM, like we have trained so many people in like thousands just on Gen AI and agents just to make it right. Like we have put a lot of focus in that, regular sessions. We have relooked at all our business processes to see how AI or Gen AI or agents now can add value. So that's one big area needs to happen, right? Second is, of course, data and technology. And then third is like we also have to see whether our processes are ready for it or not. And I will say 50% of the time, most of those processes will be changed by infusing AI agents into them.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, the other thing that I'll add there too, and I think this is something for us to think about is, and you make a point about process. The process will evolve. We go from step by step process to having AI in the middle of these processes doing some workflows on our behalf, right? And then getting insights and results that we can interpret from that perspective. I think the other point that I'll make too that I see customers maybe struggle with is AI is very broad. And having the use cases that we want to use AI for clearly identified and starting with the ones that are going to be the most impactful is a good way to segue into this AI revolution, right? Sometimes it can look like it's a lot. It can look like it's going to take a lot of time, to adopt. But if you really think about each industry that you're in, each vertical that you're in, there's very specific things that are either cumbersome to do in Oracle or any other system for that matter, or things that take an inordinate amount of time that don't add value, right? I mean, as an engineer, I always think about value add, non-value add, right? And I think, you using the AI to reduce some of that non-value add and actually get your folks focused on true value add activities is really a good true north for leveraging AI. And then the last question that I have, for the panel is, trends. AI is constantly evolving. We've gone from, traditional AI to Gen AI, agentic AI now, and there's all sorts of, fun terms that are constantly coming out that are just more and more complex. So in terms of the trends, maybe Dave, something that you're maybe excited about or something that you're nervous about that relevant to what DirecTV wants to do with AI.
So the biggest trend for me, and I think we've covered it in multiple forms already, right? Is the evolution from forecasting to being predictive to being able to be prescriptive, right? That's the change. Now, for us, from a DirecTV standpoint, I think we are very good at forecasting. We're trying to get to a predictive state. And then our goal would be to get to a prescriptive state. And what I mean by prescriptive is where the AI agent is not just giving you information that you can act on, but it actually does the job for you, right? Either executes it, and then even does exception handling on all of that execution. So that is the biggest trend I'd like to follow. But for us to make that leap, I think first step is to get to that predictive stage, which is where I think we probably need a lot more automation, right? So taking out a lot of the manual tasks within the process as it relates to, let's say, procurement, order processing, or even exception handling. Those kind of things, if we can automate right out of the gate, that's probably going to help us move from that forecasting to the predictive state, because it gives us more bandwidth to do some of those other activities. And then once we have that predictive state, we already talked about creating the data platform as well as the technology to support it. And then it would be our goal to get from that predictive to prescriptive using those platforms.
Absolutely. Any trends that you're seeing, Pushpinder, that maybe are exciting, in the broader supply chain space?
Yeah, I'll say like 3 trends which are very exciting now in my views. First is, from many years, like we were looking for autonomous supply chains, right? And I see that now we have technology to enable that. So that real-time orchestration is something which I am really very positive about, right? Second is, as Dave mentioned, there is a big movement from predictive AI to more agentic AI or action-oriented AI. So that's the second trend which I'm very optimistic about. Then third is, when we are talking about AI journey, we have to see how we take AI more horizontal, right? We have to look at it as more muscle power or capability an organization is developing. You cannot take it into a great use case which is isolated, which is not part of your day-to-day working. So that's the third trend. Things which I'm nervous about, I see there is a big gap in terms of talent as well as readiness from the organization's point of view to accept results for AI. So that's the one. And second is, I see that there is a lot of confusion. Every company is launching agents. They are launching their own products. So technology is getting very fragmented, and which will confuse clients to make decisions which are sometimes difficult to change back. So that's the two trends I'm a little nervous about.
Okay. I'll add something quickly that I think is important with regards to strategy and supply chain, right? I mentioned that from a corporate perspective, you sometimes see we have a corporate AI strategy, and then you start going into the different, finance, human capital, supply chain, and we have our own little strategies, right? I mean, at our individual level. So getting alignment across the corporate strategy and our internal, if you will, strategy on the AI side is extremely important. I think also for a lot of you are here because you either own Oracle, want to buy Oracle, or want to get more value out of Oracle. Really take a deep dive into all the things that have been added to Oracle in the AI space. I mean, there's a lot there between what's built in, what you'll be able to build on your own or with the help of SIs like IBM. Really have a good understanding of what's there, right? And because Oracle is constantly adding things to it, getting the most value out of your AI investment is going to be the most important thing. And ultimately, AI, in my mind, is to enable people to do better, to enable supply chains to be much more efficient and much more agile, and ultimately, use technology to benefit the organization, right? I have one more slide because I know we're running pretty short on time. This is more of a wrap-up slide that we had, and this is at a high level. AI is going to touch every single part of the supply chain, whereas we talked a lot about data, we talked a lot about processes, workflows as well, and then you also have what I like to call the automation optimization side of the house, which is in supply chain, we're obsessed with making sure that we are as optimal as possible. We operate the way that we need to operate in the best way possible, and leveraging AI in these different SEM pillars. And while we may have a broader strategy in terms of AI, we can start small in our different pillars, be that supply chain planning, be that procurement, be that logistics, and slowly, start adopting that, right? To the point where once we start going from individual capabilities to broader capabilities and be able to use what we've built in connection with everything, that is my definition and IBM's definition of agility, right? Be able to use these technology and AI processes to really make you as agile, as responsive as possible. So with that, we thank you for your kind attention. We hope you enjoy the rest of the AI World Show and appreciate your time today.
We have 2 minutes to take a question. Anyway.
Interested in our latest AI white paper for supply chain. There's a QR code that you can use to download it from the Institute of Business Value.